The Supreme Court has reignited a fierce national debate over the right to bear arms with a landmark 8-1 decision, drawing the attention of legal experts, lawmakers, and citizens across the country. This ruling is not just another entry in the ongoing conversation about gun rights, it marks a pivotal moment that could reshape the legal landscape for years to come. By striking down a federal law that trapped individuals in a legal paradox over restoring their Second Amendment rights, the court has opened the door for thousands who were previously barred from gun ownership, even after serving their sentences and seeking rehabilitation. The case at the heart of this decision involved individuals with past domestic violence convictions, and the ruling has sent shockwaves through the world of American gun control. It forces lawmakers, courts, and the public to re-examine who can own firearms, how lost rights can be regained, and what standards should apply to those seeking a second chance. The decision directly confronts the long-standing conflict between strict federal restrictions and more flexible state-level rights restoration processes. For years, a catch-22 left many Americans permanently disarmed even after they had paid their debt to society. Now that legal deadlock has been broken, offering hope to those seeking to fully rejoin their communities. The court's move signals a significant shift in how it interprets the categories of prohibited persons, a cornerstone of federal gun policy since the late 20th century. This could have far-reaching consequences for future cases and legislation. As we explore the majority opinion, concurrences, and the lone dissent, we'll witness a complex judicial conversation about the balance between government power and individual constitutional rights. The justices grappled with questions of public safety, redemption, and the limits of federal authority. This case also hints at how the court may soon address the growing conflict between federal gun bans and state legal marijuana use, a legal gray area affecting millions of Americans who find themselves caught between state reforms and federal prohibitions. As we move forward, let's examine the details of the case, the court's reasoning, and what this historic decision could mean for the future of the Second Amendment and the ongoing struggle to define the boundaries of American rights. The story began with Patrick Heffley, an Ohio man convicted of misdemeanor domestic violence, whose life would soon become entangled in a web of conflicting laws and bureaucratic hurdles. What seemed like a straightforward case quickly spiraled into a legal maze, with consequences that reached far beyond his own circumstances. As a result of his conviction, Heffley lost his right to own a firearm under both Ohio state law and federal law. This is a standard consequence for such offenses, intended to protect public safety, but for Heffley, it marked the beginning of a much larger struggle. After serving his sentence and fulfilling all the requirements set by the court, Heffley tried to move forward. He turned to Ohio's legal process for rehabilitated individuals, hoping to restore his civil rights and regain a sense of normalcy. But he hit a wall. Ohio law wouldn't restore his rights if federal law still barred him, creating a frustrating and seemingly insurmountable obstacle. No matter how much he tried to comply, the door remained closed. Meanwhile, federal law wouldn't lift its ban unless Ohio restored his rights first. This created a classic catch-22, where each law pointed to the other as the reason for denial, leaving Heffley trapped in a legal loop. This circular logic left Heffley, and many others in similar situations, permanently barred from gun ownership, regardless of their rehabilitation or efforts to comply with the law. The system offered no clear path forward. With each law pointing to the other as the obstacle, individuals like Heffley found themselves stuck, unable to move past their convictions even after paying their debt to society. Prosecutors claimed their hands were tied, insisting that the law left them with no discretion to help people in Heffley's position, even if they believed it was the right thing to do. Meanwhile, Heffley's attorneys argued passionately that this legal deadlock rendered the state's restoration process meaningless, undermining the very idea of rehabilitation and second chances. The Ohio Supreme Court ultimately upheld the denial, reinforcing the impasse and setting the stage for a much larger legal battle that would soon reach the nation's highest court. The U.S. Supreme Court recognized this as a systemic problem, not just an Ohio issue, but one affecting countless individuals across the country who found themselves caught in similar legal traps. The justices agreed to take up the case, determined to resolve the conflict between state and federal law and clarify the rights of those seeking a fresh start. The outcome of this case would not only decide Heffley's fate, but also set a precedent for whether federal or state law should control the restoration of gun rights for thousands of Americans. Chief Justice Roberts, writing for the majority, cut through the legal knot that had long confused courts and individuals alike. The case before the Supreme Court was more than just a technical legal dispute. It was about the real-life consequences of how federal and state laws interact when it comes to restoring civil rights. Federal law allows for rights restoration at the state level, and states can't use the federal ban as an excuse to deny that process. This means that if a state has a process for restoring rights, it must be allowed to work, without being blocked by federal restrictions. The court held that Congress intended a partnership. Federal law sets the ban, but states decide when someone is rehabilitated. This partnership is crucial, because it recognizes that states are often in the best position to judge when a person has truly changed and deserves a second chance. Ohio's approach, the court said, made the federal exception meaningless and created an absurd, permanent ban. By refusing to even consider petitions for rights restoration, Ohio was effectively shutting the door on redemption for countless people. The ruling clarifies that state courts must consider rights restoration petitions without being blocked by the federal prohibition itself. This is a significant shift, ensuring that the process is not just a formality, but a real opportunity for review and possible relief. This ensures a real, not illusory path to redemption for people like Heffley. It means that those who have paid their debt to society can at least ask for their rights back and have their cases heard on the merits. The decision doesn't guarantee restoration, only a fair hearing. But for many, that chance to be heard is a vital step toward rebuilding their lives and rejoining their communities. It reaffirms the state's role in civil rights restoration and prevents federal law from imposing inescapable punishment. The Supreme Court's decision draws a clear line, making sure that federal law does not override the state's authority to offer hope and a fresh start. For thousands, it opens the door to a second chance, a chance to move forward, participate fully in society, and leave the past behind. Justice Clarence Thomas concurred, but went further, arguing that broad, status-based bans on gun ownership are constitutionally suspect under the Second Amendment's original meaning. He emphasized that, historically, bans targeted those proven dangerous, not entire categories of people. Thomas warned that modern laws disarming people for nonviolent offenses, or for using legal substances like marijuana, lack historical precedent. His opinion signals that the court may soon scrutinize all prohibited persons categories under a strict historical test. Thomas's concurrence sets the stage for future challenges to federal gun control, urging courts to focus on history, not policy. Justice Sotomayor's lone dissent focused on public safety, especially the risks of domestic violence. She argued that the majority's decision weakens critical protections Congress intended with the Lautenberg Amendment, which aimed to keep guns from abusers. Sotomayor saw the Catch-22 as a deliberate safeguard, ensuring only the most robust state processes could restore rights. She warned that lowering this bar could let dangerous individuals regain access to firearms. Her dissent highlights the tension between individual rights and the government's duty to protect citizens from harm. While outnumbered, her perspective remains vital in the national debate over gun rights and public safety. This decision can't be separated from the court's 2022 Bruen ruling, which made history the sole test for gun laws. Bruen forced courts to justify regulations by showing they match founding-era traditions, not just public safety concerns. The Heffley case reflects this shift, emphasizing that rights should be restorable, not permanently lost. Justice Thomas's concurrence made the connection explicit, calling for a re-evaluation of all prohibited persons laws through a historical lens. Lower courts are now divided, with inconsistent rulings on bans and restrictions as they struggle to interpret history. The Heffley decision moves the debate from what weapons can be regulated to who can be regulated. This logic is especially relevant for millions of Americans using state-legal marijuana. The Heffley ruling has major implications for the battle over gun rights for marijuana users. Federal law bans gun ownership for anyone using controlled substances, including state-legal marijuana, creating a direct conflict with state laws. Post-Bruin, courts are questioning whether blanket bans on marijuana users have any historical basis. Some federal courts now require proof of dangerousness, not just drug use, to justify disarmament. The Justice Department is losing ground, with judges rejecting its historical arguments and even dropping some cases. The Heffley decision strengthens challenges to the federal marijuana ban, suggesting that permanent status-based prohibitions are constitutionally shaky. The stage is set for the Supreme Court to strike down the federal ban on gun ownership for law-abiding cannabis users. For thousands like Heffley, the Supreme Court's decision means a real chance to regain their rights, ending years of legal limbo. The ruling signals a shift away from permanent bans and toward individualized assessments of dangerousness or rehabilitation. This could reshape federal law, requiring meaningful opportunities for rights restoration. The biggest impact may be for millions of marijuana users who now have a stronger legal argument against blanket gun bans. The decision will be cited in every challenge to federal laws barring gun ownership for cannabis users. Congress and federal agencies face mounting pressure to resolve the conflict between drug and gun laws. The choice: reclassify marijuana or amend gun laws to reflect modern realities. The legal ground beneath the federal prohibition is rapidly eroding. The Supreme Court's 8-1 ruling is more than a technical fix. It's a turning point in the Second Amendment's story. By ending a legal catch-22, the court reaffirmed that rehabilitation must be possible, not just theoretical. The decision extends the Bruin logic from what arms are protected to who can possess them, putting all prohibited persons laws under historical scrutiny. Justice. Thomas's concurrence makes clear broad permanent bans are on borrowed time. The ruling sets the stage for a Supreme Court showdown over gun rights for marijuana users. This case captures the tension between rights and safety, federal and state power, and history versus modern life. The debate isn't over, but the court has charted a bold new course for the future of gun rights in America.